Hi folks, you are welcome to this week's episode of Genos Live. Really excited with our guest today for two reasons. One, because he's become a very good friend of Genos events in general. And if you've been around Genos events over the last couple of years, including during the pandemic, you'll have seen Zach talking with us on the topic of purpose. Well, it's a change of pace today, and a very exciting change of pace that we want to share with you. So one reason is he's a very good friend to us, and secondly is talking to him even for the 20 minutes before we came on here on this topic, it's going to get your socks absolutely rolling up and down. So we'll get Zach in here in a couple of minutes, but beforehand, let me tell you that his first book, which is called The Invisible Leader, which is absolutely the seminal work on purpose and finding your purpose and helping people to find a purpose and leveraging your purpose is really first class and really worth picking up. Now, if the QR code goes away before you get a chance to scan it or to get a picture of the screen, don't worry, I'm going to feature it a couple of times during the session. Now, you'll see when you hear Zach talk that he's a very easy guy to listen to, and when you read his book, you hear him talk. It's so his prose is just so accessible and full of such accessible and practical ideas. So really excited to get into this one. But if you haven't read The Invisible Leader, make a point of picking it up. It's really one of the better works out there from the point of view of somebody who wants to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty doing the work instead of just talking about the academic perspectives on purpose. So here, as is traditional for us, I'm going to ask you just to pop in and impress our guest with where you're dialing in from today. Pop it into the chat for us. On the whether you're on the Genos site or you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, pop it in there, and Elaine will pick it up and for us later on and feed it back to us. But also, I'd just be curious, any comments that you care to make. Are you made to feel like you matter at work? In fact, let me ask you, are you made to feel like you matter? Period. Are there any particular situations where you feel like you really don't matter? And anything that you care to share in the chat would be just interesting for context for the conversation with Zach. Now, here's the traditional piece again. That's the third word I've said, or the third time I've said traditional. Sorry about that. A little bit about Genos International. I'm not going to do we were founded in type conversation. I'm going to do a conversation that anybody who has been on Genos events before might have heard, but it never gets old because I think it's really important concept to get your head around. So let me ask you, just take a moment and think of the best boss you ever worked for, and bring to mind three words for how they made you feel. Not what were they like, how did they make you feel? So if they made you feel sad, depressed, down, happy, upbeat, joyful, connected, whatever, just bring those words to mind. And by the way, just notice, drop into your body while you're doing that, and notice, did you feel any shift in your affect, in the way you feel in your gut when you thought about that person? And if you didn't feel a shift in your affect thinking about that person, why not think about the worst one? The worst boss you ever worked for. And just again, think of three words for how they made you feel. I'm not going to look for them from you. I just want you to tune in and think about them. And again, just notice, did you feel any shift? Well, we do that exercise a lot as part of our programs. And recently we had a group of maybe 40, 50 people on, and we polled them. And here are the words that came up for their best bosses. And that's really great news for those best bosses, because one of the most robust findings in the social sciences is that people perform better, engage better, and are more impacted when they're in positive, productive, emotional state. And so the boss that makes you feel this way is putting you into a state where you can potentially produce the best results of your life for them. Unlike this person, who is putting you into a place where it's impossible for you to bring the best version of yourself when you're feeling this way, because you're constantly on alert, you're constantly covering your backside, you're constantly second guessing yourself. Well, we often say, if you want to understand emotional intelligence, you don't need to know anything more than the way you show up to people determines the way they feel in large part. And the way they feel determines the extent to which they're capable of engaging. And the extent to which they're capable of engaging determines pretty much everything about that outcome of that relationship. That's where it's your kids, your partner, your business contacts, the people that work for you, etc. The way you show up is critical. And that's what emotional intelligence is all about. That's what we do. We are just about helping people to help their people to understand how to show up to have the most positive impact on their people. This is my new favorite quote. I think I might even have mentioned it last week. I think it just nails it. Culture, Bill Markline says, is how employees' hearts and stomachs, there's the gut, feel about Monday morning on a Sunday night. And think about that. Think about the worst boss. How did you feel on Sunday night getting ready for that? So we're pretty good at helping folks to show their folks how to show up in a way that puts people into a positive, productive, emotional state. We also, besides doing that for end user clients, we also certify people to use our tools, use our programs, and so on. And the very last program for certification is coming up in the first week of December. And it would mean that if you join that program, by the end of January, you'd have a new credential. So whether you're an independent coach, consultant, or trainer, if you're an independent coach, consultant, trainer, you'd have a new business line. If you're an internal learning and development professional or a trainer, you have a new set of skills and a new set of tools to bring into your organization. And for people who sign up for that and quote Genos Live, by the way, Elaine will drop in a link to the site for this. If you quote Genos Live, we'll give you a 20% discount on that. So, moving right along, let me bring Elaine in just momentarily before we bring in Zach, and just ask her, what have we got on the chat? Indeed, if we have anything, where are people dialing from and what are they saying?
We have people from all over today. We have Slovenia, we have Seattle, we have Buenos Aires, Argentina, and then we have a huge contingent from Ireland with us today. We have Kildare, West Cork, Malahide, Dublin, and Galway, the lovely
Great.
West.
Super.
So nice
Super.
to see. Yeah, people are very excited for this.
Great. And any comments? Did anybody make any comments about mattering or like that, or was it just where they came from?
Well, we have Paula has shared her words for her best and worst boss. So best boss made her feel confident, valued, and empowered, and her worst boss made her feel apathetic, worthless, and lost. So
That says it
those
all,
are powerful
folks.
words
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and people are really looking forward to this. Our own Aoife is on with us, and she said she's a big fan of Zach's work. So
There you
good to
go.
see
And
her.
there's a lot of them out there. And by the way, if this is your first time hearing Zach speak, you're going to be part of that contingent afterwards. So, with no further ado, I know you didn't come here to hear us. Let's bring Zach into the frame. And you're very, very welcome, Zach.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks for all your kind words, too.
No, I mean, absolutely from the heart. And I want to tell you folks, I'm not going to give you the details, but Zach saved our lives because I kind of screwed up the timing of this session today. And it worked out well for him as well, because let me tell you, and I'll give you a teaser, he's just come back from a conference where he spoke to the top 200 leaders in the US Army about the topic we're talking about today. So this is something, it's really is very much an up and coming hot topic. So very excited to have you on, Zach. And I hope he doesn't kill me for this. He didn't say I couldn't say it, but he's actually working on the book for this, on mattering. And that's, so you heard it here first. And you're going to hear some of what's going to be in the book here first. So really appreciate you being here. And before you disappear off to look at the chat, Elaine, and just keep an eye on the chat for us, maybe you just do the formal introduction for Zach, just to let us know, or to let folks who haven't been exposed to him before know who he is and the background and so on.
My pleasure. So Zach Mercurio is an author, researcher, speaker, and consultant specializing in purposeful leadership, meaningful work, and positive organizational psychology. Zach's book, The Invisible Leader, Transform Your Life, Work, and Organization with the Power of Authentic Purpose, has been praised as a compelling book filled with powerful stories, cutting-edge research, and practical tools that show us how to lead with purpose. Zach works with hundreds of companies, governments, and schools around the world to forge purposeful leaders and cultivate positive cultures that enable more meaning, mattering, motivation, well-being, and performance. Welcome, Zach.
Thank you, Elaine. I appreciate it. I appreciate your work in producing this as well.
Yeah, yeah. She does all the heavy lifting. I just turn up and show up and look
No.
pretty, or try. Elaine, thanks a million. So I'll be able to see Elaine off camera, and so when some questions arrive in, as the questions occur to you folks, pop them into the chat, and Elaine will be wildly waving at me off camera. And we'll bring her back in. So we'll see you a little bit later, please God, Elaine. So let me bring in, let me see. Yes. Yes, there we go. And just I'll put that up there just for a few minutes in case you didn't catch it at the beginning. And there's a few other things I want to share with you about Zach. But Zach, so again, thank you for being here. Anybody that knows you, anybody who's read the book, anybody who's heard of Zach Mercurio, they would think about you as being the purpose guy, the go-to guy on purpose, and the go-to guy on a very practical dimension or a perspective on purpose. How did you segue from that into mattering?
Purpose is the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. Right? It's something or someone's use or usefulness. In other words, it's our contribution. It asks us, of what use are we to the world around us, whatever world we're in. But something struck me over the past couple of years, and in doing this work for the past 8 years, and that's, there's something that comes before purpose. Because if purpose is our contribution, if we want people to find their contribution, what has to come first? Well, they first have to believe they have something to contribute. If we want people to use their strengths to make an impact, which is what purpose is, what do they have to know first? Well, they first have to believe they have strengths, right? They have to believe that they're worthy of contribution. And when I started looking at the research on how people feel about themselves, we know that in global surveys, almost a third of people indicate they feel lonely. Almost 40% of people indicate they feel forgotten, overlooked. People in work indicate they feel undervalued and underappreciated. So how can we expect anything to matter to someone who first doesn't believe that they matter? So mattering comes first. And what I mean by that is that for people to make a contribution, they have to first believe they have something to contribute. They have to believe that they are significant. So that's how I got there. This is almost like the pre-purpose work. And I will say it's sort of like a cycle, because when someone can see their purpose, their impact or contribution, it helps them to feel like they matter. And feeling like we matter helps us to believe in our purpose. So it's almost like a cycle as well. But that core experience of mattering, feeling significant, is necessary for all of the things we say we want.
Okay, so a very, from the way you describe, a very logical segue. You know, it's a very it's not even a segue. It's actually just an expansion of the topic, a very sensible expansion of what your core focus is.
And I like thinking about thinking about anything in life or in organizations of leading indicators and lagging indicators. And I'm always asking myself, am I looking at a lagging indicator? Or am I looking at a leading indicator? What could be the leading indicator of this lagging indicator? And the experience of purpose, or even things in organizations like engagement, motivation, fulfillment, those are lagging indicators of someone's belief that they are significant and what they do matters.
And so just to kind of ground the conversation, how would you succinctly define mattering? What is it?
Yeah, and it's not just me. Researchers have defined mattering as feeling significant to the world around you. It's the belief that we are significant to the people around us.
Okay.
That could be the group that you're in, the organization that you're in, the society that you're in. And it comes from two primary forces and feelings. One is the feeling that I'm valued. These are things like, you know my full name, you ask me questions about my life, you see me, you honor my identity, you miss me when I'm gone. And then knowing exactly how I add value. You show me how my unique gifts make a unique impact. You show me how I'm relied on by people around me. So those are the two things. It's the belief that I feel significant, and the word belief is important, which we can get into in a minute. It's the belief that I'm a significant part of the world around us that comes from feeling valued and knowing how we add value.
Okay. Okay, and so let me actually invite you to get into that piece about the role of belief in that whole thing, because that sounded really like a pivotal word in the middle of that
LinkedIn and on the website too.
on the website.